大家早上好。
如果需要中文热线服务的话，请拨打347-966-4114，然后请输入 ID 939-452-859，中文热线是347-966-4114，然后输入 ID 939-452-859，谢谢。It's done.
It's done.
Thank you very much. I heard a little bit of an echo on your end, so I'm not sure if you can resolve that, but it was okay. Thank you very much. And can we go to our Spanish interpreter?
Good morning, everyone. The following message will be in Spanish, offering interpretation services. Buenos días a todos. Gracias por estar acá. Si desea interpretación simultánea en español, por favor, marque desde su teléfono al 347-966-4114 e ingrese el número de conferencia 310-644-432, símbolo numeral. Le repito, si desea interpretación simultánea en español, por favor marque desde su teléfono al 347-966-4114 e ingrese el número de conferencia 310-644-432, símbolo numeral. Esta información será publicada periódicamente en la casilla de diálogos y por favor le recordamos a todos nuestros participantes en la línea de español mantener el micrófono de sus dispositivos desactivado para así evitar el sonido de fondo y garantizar la calidad de sonido para todos los participantes durante la interpretación. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we will be putting the interpretation details in the chat periodically throughout the event. And it will also be.
我们会将这个活动
I'm sorry,
这个
Chinese
期间
for our Mandarin interpreter. I can still hear you on our line here on Zoom.
You mean the echo?
I hear you. Yeah. Oh wait, you know what? It might be my problem. I'm sorry. It is me. I apologize. I had Teams open too. I apologize. Okay, you're good. You're good. It's me. I'm the problem. It's me. Okay. So we will be posting the interpretation details in the chat throughout the meeting for those who are joining late. And they will also be at the bottom of many of the slides so that we can so that families that need that service will be able to see that information as well. So I just want to thank everyone for joining today. My name is Louis Lotito. I am on the District 25 team working with Dr. Michael D'Antona, the interacting superintendent. He cannot be on this morning's meeting, so he sent us to be with you today. And I just want to go ahead and introduce Nathan, our Administrator of Special Education, who is going to take it from here and take us through today's special education topic. Go ahead, Nathan.
Thank you, Louis. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our presentation today, Understanding the Kindergarten IEP Process, KIP. This is being presented by Community School District 25. This is the third and final in our family workshop series for this year. My name is Nathan Yakubov, and I'm the Administrator of Special Education for District 25. As you can see, my contact information is on the screen. You can reach out to me for support and questions regarding any special education evaluations, any services, assistive technology, or any placement issues. You can email me or call me. My information is there. I just want to mention also that the chat will be open through the meeting. So if you have questions, you can put them in the chat as well, and we will address that. Or you can wait till the end of the presentation and we'll have a few moments for questions then as well. I'm joined today by my colleague, Melissa Monaco, and I'll let her introduce herself.
Thank you, Nathan.
Oh, Melissa, we can't hear you. Raise the...
Still can't hear me?
Try. It's very distant.
Sure. Can you hear me now?
A little bit better.
Okay. Not really sure what's happening. Can you hear me better or not yet?
Even better, yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Hi,
Now we can hear you.
everyone. My name is Melissa Monaco. I'm the supervisor of District 25. I'm here to support Nathan and discuss our KIP information. My contact information is I sit at 2811 Queens Plaza at the 4th floor, and my email is mmonaco7@schools.nyc.gov.
Thank you, Melissa. And Melissa is supporting with this presentation, so we appreciate that. And with that, we will get started. So, as we mentioned, the presentation is understanding the kindergarten IEP process. So, in New York City, children enter kindergarten in September of the calendar year that they turn 5 years old. Children are guaranteed a kindergarten seat at a public school. Once your child starts kindergarten, they can remain at the same school until its final elementary grade. If your child was born in 2019 and lives in New York City, they are eligible to attend kindergarten this fall 2024. So some of you have children in that eligibility range. Some may already have been through this process and are learning more, but we welcome everybody, and this is really what we're going to be talking about today. So families of children with disabilities entering kindergarten in September will take part in what's called the kindergarten IEP process, the KIP process, which is how special education services and supports are determined for children that are entering kindergarten. Just want to mention that every elementary school is expected to welcome and service students with disabilities in accordance with their individualized education programs. Families of students with disabilities that are entering kindergarten in the fall are encouraged to participate in kindergarten admissions in addition to the kindergarten IEP process. So I'm just going to clarify that because that could be a little bit confusing. Today we're talking about the IEP process, and we're going to get into that a little bit more. But we also encourage families, even if your child does have an IEP or you feel that your child needs special education services, we do encourage you to also register and apply for the regular kindergarten process as well. So we're going to be talking about an individualized education program and the kindergarten process for that. So what is an individualized education program? All students with disabilities who require special education services have individualized education programs known as IEPs. The IEP is a legal document, and it contains information about your child's interests, their strengths, their needs, their goals, and the educational program that we're going to be providing for them. As I mentioned, it's a legal document, and it describes how the New York City Public Schools will provide your child with a free and appropriate education, public education, which they are entitled to by the law, in the least restrictive environment. And when we talk about least restrictive environment, that means we want them to be in a setting that is most closely resembling a typical student that's going into kindergarten. So New York City Public Schools will work with you to consider whether your child needs special education in kindergarten. Now, this is regardless of whether or not your child is currently receiving preschool special education services. And if so, they will develop an IEP for your child. This is called the kindergarten IEP process, or KIP, and your participation as a parent is very important. You can email kindergarten IEP process at schools.nyc.gov to request a copy of the kindergarten orientation guide for families, if you like, following this presentation. And again, if you have more questions, that may help you as well. So the process starts with a referral. The process will depend on whether your child already has a preschool IEP or not. So on the screen, you'll see two options. If your child does have a preschool IEP, then the Committee on Preschool Special Education, CPSC, which you're probably familiar with because they are providing the services to your child at this time, will refer your child for an evaluation for school-age special education. If your child does not have a preschool IEP, so your child is just either at home or at a daycare or at a pre-K, but they're not getting any special education services, you may submit a written referral. New York City Public Schools may also make a referral and notify you if there are concerns, through the teacher or through the school. That starts the IEP process, and I'm going to let Melissa take over now and speak more to that.
Okay, just wanted to make sure you could hear me. Can you hear me, Nathan?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, so right now we're actually in what we call our kindergarten process for our KIPs. So if you have a student already that is, receiving services or is about to get initially evaluated to determine if they need services for kindergarten, this process has already started and initiated. So the way it looks like is some cases are assigned to school teams, so would be schools within your zone district. And other cases go through what we call the Committee of Special Education. So those would be handled by our teams within the CSE office. And what happens is our teams, whether they're from the CSE or the schools, they're reaching out already to introduce themselves, to introduce the process. And a part of that process is they will share documents, and some of these documents are called our prior written notice for recommendation, and this will explain what we're proposing to do and how we're proposing to conduct the evaluation to determine if your child would be eligible for special educations moving forward. Some students already are receiving special education services through CPSE. So that's why it's considered a reevaluation. So as we're reviewing your child's case, we're trying to look at what's been done already. So some students might have just been recently evaluated through the Committee of Preschool Services, so through CPSC already. So we're trying to determine what evaluations have been conducted, what recent meetings have been done so that we could look at the data and determine what we will need as our KIP process to move forward to determine if we need any new assessments to really see what other services your child might need. And a part of this process, on top of collecting the data is determining, do we need to do more assessments? So do we need to go into the classroom and conduct an observation? Do we need to conduct a new psychoeducational testing, a speech evaluation, or other related services that might include occupational therapy or physical therapy? And at times also parents do provide other reports from their own specialists. You could go to the next slide, thank you. So a part of this information and data that we are gathering during this process, one of them is the medical form. And what the medical form does, it works in various ways. So you might have a child that, has some health needs, and what we're trying to determine is what those health needs look like and how we need to provide support for next year. So you could have a child at home that might have asthma, and we want to be able to be prepared for September to see what that looks like. What kind of support does a student need? Is a student required to visit the nurse during the day to receive any type of medication or treatment for asthma, and any other health related needs that the student might need. Another form that we also look at and we try and gather information is if your child might require specialized transportation. So this is for the bus. We want to see if, it might be a student that needs a special type of accommodation due to a medical need or a mobility limitation. So when the team provides you with that documentation, it's to be taken to your physician or a specialist that, might be treating your child to fill out that information. And then that information comes back to us, and we determine if we need to send it off to another department or if we can make recommendations based on the information we already have. And all these forms usually are collected before the IEP meeting. Now, sometimes we understand that, some specialists might take a little time to be able to fill out these forms. So if by the time the IEP meeting is scheduled and all these forms aren't filled, that is okay, because what we could always do is have a reconvene meeting to review those forms and, add those additional supports that are needed for your child. So after we've gathered all the data, we've done our observations, we've determined we have sufficient assessments, or we've had to carry out new assessments to be able to really determine how your child has been progressing with the current services he or she have been receiving. Once we're done with that part, we are reaching out again to our parents to be able to determine what date works best for an IEP meeting. And this looks very different in different teams in the CSC. Some teams will reach out and just, regardless, you're going to get a letter home. But what we encourage our teams to do is call the parent, determine what is a great date and what works for parents to have an IEP meeting. But this process does take a while, because what we try and do is we try and include those preschool teams. So if your child has been in a class, and we try to include that child's special education teacher, general education teacher, the teacher that could provide us the most information during an IEP meeting. And we try and include some of the therapists from the school. Sometimes that's not, it doesn't work with everyone's schedule. So what we try and do is we at least try and have somebody that is currently working with your child to be able to review information and all the reports. So these meetings are, put on a calendar. They could be either in the actual location of where the psychologist and the team sits, so at the school or at the CSC office. But nowadays, some of our parents have been requesting a lot of remote meetings via Zoom, so that is also an option for our parents and our school teams as well. So during this time, you as a parent or guardian, you guys are invited to this meetings, because we believe parents and guardians are very important part of this decision making. You're letting us know how your child's been doing, how you feel about the services that we might be considering during this meeting. And that's why these meetings are done at least like 3 to 4 weeks ahead of time. We're already putting them on our calendar to make sure that everybody is able to accommodate their schedule so they could fit it in. Okay. So during the meeting, what's going to happen is we're going to be talking about, eligibility for school age special education services. Now, if you have already students, your children that are receiving special education services, what you see on the IEP right now is that they're classified as a preschool student with a disability on their IEP. Moving forward for school age cases, the child will be found eligible if they meet criteria for the 13 disability classifications. If your child has this preschool IEP, but the IEP team finds that your child is not eligible for special education in kindergarten, your child will be declassified. They will go to general education class. The team may also recommend declassification support services for your child the first year without actually having special education or an IEP. And this might include some instructional support, some accommodations in the classroom, preferential seating, or like directions read or something, for lessons. And sometimes they also include related services. Sometimes we might say, okay, we're not trying to recommend the whole service such as counseling or occupational therapy, but we want to see if at least 6 months into that school year, they might still benefit. And then after that, the support, the classification services fade. Okay, so going back to the 13 classifications that we discuss about a student needing to meet eligibility for one of these 13 classifications, they're here. And, so the IEP team, which includes the parents and the therapists and the school psychologist, they identify the category of classification that most affects the student in the educational performance. So These classifications are autism, deafblindness, deafness, emotional disturbance, hearing impairment, learning disability, intellectual disability, multiple disabilities, orthopedic impairment, other health impairment, speech and language impairment, traumatic brain injury, and visual impairment. Now, with all these classifications, sometimes our student might fall into a category that might show signs that they identify as both, but we try and pick the one that most affects the child. So you might have a student that does have speech and language impairments, but also has a diagnosis of autism, and we try and determine which is the one that impacts a student greatly. And that's how we make the decision. Some of these classifications also require medical documentation. So some of those would be like deafblindness, deafness, hearing impairment, orthopedic impairment, as well as traumatic brain injury and visual impairment. So when we're discussing eligibility, the IEP determines whether a student is eligible for special education or not. So if a child is found eligible, it's because they meet criteria of one or more of the classifications and requires special education, a special education program or related services, or both, because of their disability, and to be able to support them in whatever setting that is recommended. Now, when a child is not found eligible, that means the student was not able to meet criteria for any of the disabilities, and does not require special education or related services, because the student is making progress already or is anticipated to make progress with its current individual strengths and abilities. Some determination on whether a student is not meeting the general education standard is one of the following: a lack of appropriate instruction. So that might be a reason why we don't recommend services, because sometimes we do see that students, have not been exposed to certain material or certain, skills as of yet, and that's why they are deficient in those skills, like certain vocabulary, and certain number knowledge and reading knowledge. And sometimes we also take into account the limited English proficiency. So we might be looking at a student that just came from a different country, and the reason that they're not making progress is because they're still trying to develop in that English language and still acquiring language and skills that they weren't exposed to previously. Okay, so here, although a student may be medically diagnosed with a condition such as autism, cerebral palsy, or dyslexia, this does not automatically make a person eligible for special education services in the school setting. The disability must impede their learning and education for them to be considered adversely affected. So a student who's struggling in school with homework should be considered for special education if his or her disability is impacting her ability to learn and progress, and she has been provided with appropriate learning experiences and instruction. Any student, including students in a gifted and talented program or other enrichment or accelerated programs, who are advancing from grade to grade, can also be eligible to receive special education program or related services if he or she is not making the progress anticipated based on the student's individual strengths and abilities. Okay. So when we're discussing the IEP continuum of services, an IEP is a written statement or a plan to provide your child with free and appropriate public education in the least restrictive environment. So this means that your child will be in a school and classroom with non-disabled peers for as much of the day as appropriate. So there is an array of services available to support your child in the least restrictive environment. So what I want to go through right now is what that looks like. So we're going to start off with the top with what general education looks like. So this would be a student that does not receive any services, was not found eligible for any special education services, and would just be educated in the classroom with other peers that also do not have any type of, special education support. Now our next category would be general education related services. So what this would look like is a student that's in a general education class, but was still found eligible to receive some type of related service. This could mean a student was found eligible to still receive and need support from speech and language or physical therapy, occupational therapy, has hearing services or vision services. And those needs are being met and supported through those related services. Our next continuum of service is general education with special education teacher support services. So what this looks like is a student that's in a general education class and might require support maybe in those English language arts and or math areas. So the student would receive extra support from a teacher, whether it would be a push-in services of the teacher working with the student inside of the classroom, or a pull-out service that the student, comes out of his classroom for a few periods during the school week to be able to, work on those areas in reading, writing, and math. Our next continuum support is integrated co-teaching services. And what this looks like, it kind of looks like a general education. That's what I like to tell my parents a lot, because it does look, it's a big classroom, especially depending on the school. So we could have a classroom of about 20 to 25 students. And of those students, there's a small portion of students, depending on the school you're at, that are about 10 to 12 students within that class that do receive that do have a IEP, and these are students that also might receive related services. What's special about this class is that you do have a general education teacher providing instructions, as well as a special education teacher for most subjects, to be able to provide support to students that require it, to be able to do smaller group work within the classroom, to be able to continue supporting in the least restrictive environments, such as an integrated co-teaching classroom. Our next service would be special class services. Now, this classroom is our smallest class. It's a class of 12 students, one teacher, and sometimes a paraprofessional. So sometimes we'll see students that, are recommended either a 12-1 classroom. So that 12-1 is just 12 students, one special education teacher, or a 12-1-1, which includes 12 students, one special education teacher, and one paraprofessional. And these classes are here to support our students that require a small setting for various reasons. They might have delays in speaking, and they need to be educated in a smaller classroom to be able to take the curriculum that they're currently learning, and take it at they're still being exposed to the same curriculum as all students in the general education and the integrated co-teaching setting, but here they're able to design a program to be able to teach them the skills at a slower pace over different days. And most of our students here are all students actually that have IEPs. So every student in that class does end up requiring services of being in a special class for most of their school day. Now, for our students that do require more specialized support, we have what's called District 75 specialized programs. And our students here, we are saying that they require the most specialized services, and classrooms that might be even smaller than 12-1. We do have a 12-1 type of classroom within District 75. But what District 75 mostly supports the students that do have much more specialized needs, whether it's students that have global delays, students that are having significant behavior needs, have health needs that require extensive support. We also have what we call day and residential placement. Now, these are for students that have much more serious and severe behavior supports that are needed to be able to have a specialized settings for them because their behaviors are harming them and the surrounding classrooms. And most of the times we need to exhaust all our continuum of service to determine that everything that has been determined to support the child, whether it's a behavior intervention plan, whether it's related services, has been exhausted before we reach the day and residential placement setting. And our last continuum service is home and hospital instruction, which once again, it is a rare occurrence that some of our students might require it, but it's there to support the students that might have extensive medical needs and cannot be supported within specialized program such as District 75, can't be supported through general education integrated or special class.
Okay, thank you, Melissa.
Thank
And
you.
so now we move into actually creating the plan. Like we spoke about the different components of the IEP and the individualized the eligibility of getting services. And now I just wanted to point out the difference between a kindergarten IEP and a kindergarten IESP. So for a kindergarten IEP, if your child is eligible for school age special education, the team will create an IEP for your child. And like we said, that will include information about your child's strengths, their interests, their unique needs, and they will also develop goals based on your child's abilities and their needs. The team will describe what skills your child will work on in kindergarten, and they will then decide what supports and services your child would need to reach those goals. So that may be one of the classes that we just spoke about. It might be one of the related services that Melissa just spoke about, and that will all be documented on the IEP. After the IEP meeting, a copy of the IEP will be given to you or mailed to you, usually within about 2 weeks. On the other hand, we have what's called a kindergarten IESP, and that's an individualized educational service plan. And that's for if your child will be attending kindergarten at a private or religious school in New York City. They may be eligible to receive special education services and or related services provided by New York City Public Schools. So even though your child is not attending a public school, if they do meet those eligibility criteria that we just spoke about, and they fall under one of those classifications and they do need services, they will be provided a level of service as well, but they will receive what's called an IESP. If you decide to send your child to a private or religious school, at your expense, of course, let your representative know that you are seeking special education in that school. If you make this request and your child is eligible for special education, the IEP team will develop an individualized education services plan instead of the IEP. So the IESP will describe the special education services, the related services to be provided while your child attends the private or religious school. You will need to provide the name and the address of the school your child will attend. Usually what we have is the school will provide you with a letter of acceptance, and this way you can bring that to your team and let them know so that they develop the proper plan for your child for next year. If your plans change at any time, that's okay. Just let your KIPP representative know. So if an IESP has been developed, because let's say you thought that you were going to send your child, to a private school, and then you changed your mind and now you want to send your child to a public school, you have to request a new IEP meeting so that they can develop the right plan for your child at the public school. So contact your KIPP representative or the district CSE office to do so. If your child will be attending a school outside of New York City, tell your KIPP representative. They will provide you with contact information for the school district where your school is located. That school district will work with you to develop an education program and provide any recommended services. New York City cannot provide services for you in another school district. So it's important that you to the team so that they can guide you along with that process and provide any necessary information to the new school district so they can develop the plan with you. So starting in May, around May, like we mentioned, a lot of students and parents are going through this process right now, and this process will continue. But starting around May, you may receive a green notice in the mail. This is called the school location letter. This letter will list your child's recommended special education services, whatever was recommended at the IEP meeting, as well as the school that will provide those services. Most children with IEPs receive special education services in the school they would go to if they did not have an IEP. So for example, let's say you live across the street from PS1, and that's where your child would go if they did not have an IEP. They will most likely go there even with their IEP, because all of our schools do have a large selection of services that they can provide to our students. So it's most likely that you will get a letter showing the school that you may have already applied to, or that you would have applied to if you didn't go through the special education process. Now, if you apply to kindergarten, then the recommended services, like I said, will most likely be provided at that school where you already receive an offer or where you have already pre-registered. And if you did not apply to kindergarten, it will most likely be provided in a school in your home district. We do try to keep the students as close to home as possible, so we will try to provide a school in your home district. So I just, again, I want to clarify, because a lot of times this is very confusing for parents. If you've already registered for kindergarten and you have an offer, or you will receive an offer, you may receive another offer with the green letter due to your special education recommendation. And most likely it'll be the same offer. If it's different, you can make the decision, you reach out to the school, see what they are able to offer at that school, and then you can decide whether or not you'll be sending them to that school or not. There are some special situations. So for example, if your child's IEP recommends a District 75 school, which Melissa had mentioned, that's one of our specialized schools where every student has an IEP. Then your child will receive placement in one of those New York City public school specialized schools. So you would get a letter stating that school that your child is recommended. Obviously, that will not be the school that you had registered for kindergarten, because this is a special school that you can only get through your IEP. Same thing if your child's IEP recommends a state-approved or state-supported non-public school. This is for our children who have very severe delays that we cannot service in a public school. And if we're going to make that recommendation, you will receive a letter recommending that school as well. We also have specialized programs such as ASD Horizon and NEST for our students with autism, or ACES programs, or AIMS. If you apply for any of those programs, you'll receive a letter with that school that has that program notifying you of that program. And finally, if your child requires an accessible school, for mobility, for example, let's say they are in a wheelchair, your child will be offered a placement in such a school, and you will receive that letter. So if you get a letter and this is a school that's, let's say, not next to your house, or it's not the school that you anticipated sending your child to for kindergarten, it may be due to the fact that they recommended something more specialized for your child, and that's why you're getting this offer. If the school that's listed in the green school location letter did not take part in your IEP meeting, the staff at that new school may invite you to a family meeting. At the family meeting, you can visit the school, look over your child's IEP with the school staff who can help you understand it better, share information about your child because they will be coming as a new student, so that's important. There's a lot of information that you can let the school know about, and ask any questions you may have about how the services on the IEP will be provided for your child. If you'd like to visit the school or have a family meeting, you can contact the school's parent coordinator or the principal. Explain that your child will be coming to the school. You have the letter that says that, but that your child's kindergarten IEP meeting didn't take place at the school, so you want to learn more about the school, and you can do that over the phone if you prefer, or if you don't want to meet at all, you can let them know as well. Speak with your IEP team if you would like an interpreter at your child's IEP meeting, or if you would like a translation of your child's IEP assessments or notices. Some of you are utilizing translation for this meeting today. same way we had it today for our presentation. You are entitled to have that for any of your meetings in New York City Public Schools. And it doesn't matter if it's an IEP meeting or any other type of meeting. And in addition, like I said, you can also have any documents translated also. That won't be automatic, that will take more time, but we can always order that for you and get you a copy in your language. You do have the right to challenge school decisions that are made regarding your child. And this does happen sometimes after an IEP meeting when the recommendation is made for your child. Sometimes parents disagree with that. It can happen at a later time in your child's educational career as well. But at any time, you can request either mediation or an impartial hearing. And mediation is where a mediator is an outside person, helps you in the school work out any disagreements you might have about your child's education plan. An impartial hearing is a little bit different. And an impartial hearing, you will have a hearing officer listen to both sides of the disagreement and decide what, if anything, went wrong and how to fix it. You can submit your request to the email boxes below over here on the screen. You could always submit it to the school as well or to the district. So that really closes our presentation in terms of going through the process and what all that entails. Right now, I will open it up to any questions from myself or Melissa. And you can either unmute and ask your question, or you can put your question in the chat and we will try our best to answer it. And I want to also just include our contact information for District 25. So if you don't have a question today, but you have a question after the presentation, that's okay as well. And you can always email us or call us to let us know if you have any questions. This presentation can also be found on our district website, as well as previous presentations that we have given. And one of them was the last presentation actually was about the disability classifications that we kind of went through quickly today, but we do have a whole presentation going through every one of those classifications on our website. So if you want to peruse that as well, you can see that there. But feel free, if there's any questions, please put them in the chat or just unmute and let us know. And interpreters, if you have any questions in your rooms, please let us know as well.
All right, I've allowed everyone to unmute themselves. So if anyone has a question, you can just unmute and go ahead and ask. Or if any of our interpreters have any questions, they can also share them.
Thank you, Louis. And we do have a question in the chat from Susan. Melissa, do you want to try to answer that one? She says her child was evaluated last week. Should I expect a copy of the findings?
Okay. So if your child was evaluated last week, the team will be sharing their findings, so their reports, their psychoeducational, their classroom observations with the parents prior to the meeting. So as they're scheduling the meetings, you could also let them know, hey, will I be receiving a copy of the evaluations prior to the meeting? Because I would like them to review, and the team should be sending them to you prior to the meeting.
Thank you, Melissa. And Wendy put a question about your child. Wendy is now in a pre-K class and an ICT class for pre-K, and you're asking if you still have to do anything so you can stay in the same ICT class of the same school. So yeah, I mean, that's really what the presentation was about today. I know you came late, so you might want to go back and listen to the recording, or you can join us tonight. We're going to have another presentation at 6 o'clock with the same information. But I will tell you that your child right now is receiving preschool special education services. So you will have to have another meeting for your child to continue with kindergarten special education services or school age special education services. They may have reached out to you already with a letter letting you know that they're going to start the process. If not, that should be coming soon. And you can ask your school if they're aware of anything. They may have the notice as well. They may or may not recommend an ICT class for kindergarten. That's all part of the process. They will review the information. They may do new evaluations, and then they will have another meeting to determine the eligibility as well as the program for kindergarten. So you don't necessarily have to do anything. You will be contacted. So you really just have to reply to that. and then you'll go through that process. At the same time, Wendy, we do encourage you to register also through the kindergarten process. If you want to go to that same school that you're at now, you can register, preemptively, not necessarily knowing what the recommendation will be. And if the recommendation is something that can be provided at that school, you will be recommended that school as well. But we do recommend that you register for kindergarten as well if you have not done that. Okay, any other questions? Interpreters, any questions in your rooms?
There are no questions in the Spanish line at this time.
Thank you.
No parents with questions on Mandarin line also.
All right, thank you. Okay, well, I will stick around till 12. If there's any questions that come up, anybody can put them in the chat or unmute. Anybody else, if you don't want to stay on, thank you for participating. Like I mentioned again, you can find this recording will be on the District 25 website that you see on the screen, and you have mine and Melissa's contact information, so you can always reach out for any follow-ups with that. Well, again, we thank you all for participating today and hope that this was helpful.